In a dark time in Israel's history, when the nation had turned away from God to follow false gods, a solitary man rose up with a courage that defies human logic. His name was Elijah, a prophet sent by God into a corrupt generation, led by an evil king named Ahab and his wife, Jezebel, an idolatrous woman who introduced and strengthened the worship of Baal in Israel. Baal was worshipped as the god of fertility and weather, but behind this image, there was only darkness and manipulation. The people were divided, confused, and no longer knew what to believe. Many had abandoned the God of their ancestors. Others still believed in God but tried to mix their faith with pagan practices. Elijah couldn't stand this any longer. He knew it was time for a confrontation. Not just between two men, but between two spiritual forces, between truth and lies, between the living God and a powerless idol. It was time to decide once and for all who the true God was. So Elijah proposed a direct challenge to the prophets of Baal, a public confrontation in a place where everyone could watch, listen, and decide for themselves. The chosen stage was Mount Carmel. There, Elijah would face alone the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, supported by Queen Jezebel. Picture this scene: a single man dressed plainly against hundreds of priests with luxurious robes and political influence. But Elijah didn't trust appearances, trusted the God of the impossible. He proposed the challenge: 2 altars, 2 sacrifices. And the God who answered with fire would be acknowledged as the one true God. The people would remain silent until then, agreed to the challenge. It was as if something was about to happen, something that could change the history of an entire nation. The prophets of Baal prepared the altar, placed the wood, sacrificed the animal, and began to call out. They shouted, sang, danced, pleaded, but nothing happened. No answer came from the sky. At noon, Elijah grew impatient and began to mock them. Maybe Baal was busy or asleep or on a journey. It was ironic. The prophets, increasingly desperate, began cutting themselves with swords and spears in an attempt to show extreme devotion. Blood flowed, sweat poured. But the sky remained silent. Nothing moved. No spark. No sign. Baal had failed. Then Elijah called the people to come closer. He rebuilt the altar of the Lord using 12 stones symbolizing the 12 tribes of Israel, as if calling the people back to their origins. He arranged the wood, the sacrifice, and did something unbelievable. He asked that water be poured over everything. Not once, but 3 times. The water flowed, soaking the altar, filling a trench around it. Humanly speaking, it was impossible for that altar to catch fire. But Elijah didn't rely on human logic. He trusted in a God who surpasses limits, who works in the impossible. Then he prayed. It was a simple prayer. No shouting, no dancing, no cutting. Just faith. Elijah cried out for God to reveal himself so the people would know that the Lord was the true God. And at that moment, fire fell from heaven. Real fire, visible, that consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water. The people watched in awe. The silence turned into cries of reverence. Everyone fell face down and said, "The Lord is God. The Lord is God." There was no more doubt. Baal was just a powerless idol. The God of Elijah had revealed himself with undeniable power. Elijah then ordered the arrest of the prophets of Baal. All were judged. It was the end of a cycle of idolatry that had enslaved Israel for years. But more than a physical victory, that moment marked the restoration of a people's faith, a reconnection with the Creator, a spiritual rebirth. This story goes far beyond a battle between prophets. It speaks directly to our generation. How many times do we also sit on the fence? We waver between trusting in God and seeking human alternatives. How often do we place our faith in fleeting things and empty promises and illusory solutions? Mount Carmel is a mirror for all of us. It calls us to decide, to make a choice. Elijah was just a man, but his faith transformed a nation. The same can happen today. Maybe you're facing your own prophets of Baal. Maybe you're surrounded by opposing voices, by pressure, doubts, or crises. But if you have faith, even if it's small, and take a stand like Elijah, heaven can still respond. God remains the same. He still sends fire. He still answers sincere prayers. Still moves powerfully in the lives of those who fully trust him. If this story spoke to you, if it touched your heart or rekindled your faith, then don't leave without subscribing to the channel. That's really important so more people can be reached by messages like this. Subscribe right now and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content we share here. Every week we have new Bible stories, spiritual reflections, and messages to strengthen your walk with God. If this video blessed your life, leave a like. Comment what impacted you the most in this story and share it with someone who also needs to hear this message. You could be the bridge between God and someone who needs their faith reignited. See you in the next video. May the same God who answered with fire on Mount Carmel also answer your prayers with power and faithfulness.